Good afternoon and welcome to today's Adweek webinar, where we will be looking at QSR and fast casual best practices for unconventional times. And really we're looking at, as well, we all know over the past 2 years, certainly dining habits have been transformed. And we're going to be talking about that with a guest from a major restaurant chain, and I'll get into that in a minute. And our webinar today is being sponsored by InMobi. I'm Stuart File, Vice President of Branded Content at Adweek, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, I always like to do a little bit of typical webinar housekeeping here for everyone. Make sure you know what to expect from our webinar, and also make sure that you know all the features of our platform. Our presentation today is going to be mostly conversational, and it's going to go somewhere in the 30 to 35 minute range. Afterwards, we are going to have plenty of time to take some audience questions. So I want to invite everyone, if at any point during the conversation, if you have a question for our speakers about anything related to what's going on in the restaurant industry these days, just submit your questions using the question tool you should see on your screen, probably underneath the video window where you see me presently. And so submit those questions, and we're going to get to as many as we can following our live presentation. It's not too late, by the way, to invite your colleagues to join us today, and we'd really love it if they would. If you've got colleagues who you think would be interested in hearing some of the insights and getting some of the learnings today, we sent you a final reminder email for today's event 15 minutes ago. And in there, you are going to find a link to the registration page. So grab that link, send it off to your colleagues. They still have lots of time to come on in, register, and join us live. Good news, though, is if they can't make it live, and, well, our webinar is being recorded, and it's going to be available on demand. So even if you have to leave a little early, you can always come back and catch the rest of the webinar on that on-demand recording. And we're sending you a link to that recording later this afternoon. So check your email about 3:30, 4 o'clock. You'll get a little thank you email from us. And in there, you're going to find the link to the on-demand version. If you are interested in getting a copy of today's slides, we've made those available, but I'm just going to warn you, they're very limited. Obviously, it's going to be mostly a conversational webinar, so not a ton of value in the slides. But if you want it as a takeaway, you should find them in the event resources area on your screen. Lastly, I just want to take a quick moment here and remind everyone to please check out the Adweek webinar calendar, www.adweek.com/webinars. We've got a whole full slate of webinars. We are fully booked up through March, doing 3 a week for the rest of this month, and we've just actually posted a couple of our webinars for April this morning. So go on in there, see what's coming up. Sign up for one of our upcoming webinars. You'll also get access to our entire archive of on-demand webinars. That's every webinar we've done over the past 12 months. There are a few in there from our sponsors today at InMobi, so go on in there, check it all out, see what's there. We love having you on these events. So let me move on to today's webinar and just quickly introduce our speakers for everyone. Our guest speaker, as I had mentioned, is Danielle Parra. Danielle's the SVP for the restaurant category over at Focus Brands. Again, where she's overseeing all of the strategic marketing initiatives for those restaurant brands. And while you probably may not know Focus, you probably know some of the restaurants that are part of that family, and that includes McAlister's Deli, Moe's, Southwest Grill, and I was joking, I love saying this, and Schlotzsky's. But again, Danielle's been in the retail and hospitality industry for more than 20 years. Most recently, she was actually over at in the auto aftermarket space, working at the brands there, Pep Boys and AAMCO, Precision Tune, and Auto Plus. Those, of course, are one company that controls all of those. So Danielle is obviously very, very familiar with all things going on, both in restaurant and in sort of the e-commerce space. And Danielle will be in conversation today with our host from InMobi, and that's Molly Seitel. Molly's the vertical strategy lead for QSR and retail, where she leads all the go-to-market strategies for InMobi's retail and QSR mobile ad practices. Again, extensive experience in media, ad tech, was a senior partner manager over at Walmart Media Group, VP of Global Partner Development over at Acxiom, before she came on over to InMobi. So without further ado here, let me just work the host controls and bring our speakers up on screen. So welcome, Molly. Welcome, Danielle. And Molly, you're on mute because it's not a webinar if we don't forget to work our mute buttons. All yours.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Stuart, for having me today, as well as I'd like to say thank you to Danielle for joining us today to talk a little bit about the industry and all the changes that have taken place in the food service industry.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Stuart. Looking forward to today's conversation, and thank you for inviting me.
Sure, we're delighted to have you. Well, before we even get started, can you talk a little bit about your role at Focus and what you oversee and the brands actually that you oversee?
Absolutely. And I'll start even more broadly on Focus. You know, Stuart did a great job of articulating our brands in the restaurant space, which McAlister's Deli, Moe's, and also Schlotzsky's, three great fast casual and QSR restaurants. We also in our portfolio have 4 additional brands that fall into our specialty category: Jamba, Cinnabon, Auntie Anne's, and Carvel. And so overall, as Focus brands, we really serve the needs of our consumers across almost every purchase occasion and day part in the dining industry. So whether you're looking for breakfast, lunch, a snack, or dinner, we're here across that portfolio to deliver for our guests. So my responsibility within the restaurant category is marketing and culinary innovation. So, you know, really keeping abreast of what our consumer needs and how do we build long-term relationships with our customers by providing the dining options they want, those that make, you know, it convenient for themselves and their families, and then really building those iconic brands and deepening the customer relationships through things we'll talk about today, like loyalty programs, customer engagement, and mobile.
Great. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate knowing all about your experience. It's a lot, I would imagine, especially given the changes that we've seen over the course of the last couple of years. And we all know that there have been changes in the food service industry. However, I think an interesting story for you to tell is how quickly things change. And from all that I've read and learned about Focus Brands, you were able to pivot pretty quickly, and would love to hear a little bit more about how you did so, as well as just the tactics and strategies that you used.
Absolutely. And, you know, you said it, the world changed. And obviously we're faced with the circumstance across the globe that we had not had previously. The world changed, that drove changes in our customers and consumers, and that necessitated immediate business change. What I will say at Focus Brands is coming into COVID and the pandemic, we had been making very planful investments in technology, in mobile, and in loyalty programs in multiple of our larger brands. And, you know, that sort of foresight and work that was underway ended up dovetailing really well into our ability to serve the changing customers' needs. But having said that, you know, there are also that rapid change moments. So as an example, in the restaurant space, curbside became immediately important as dining rooms were closing overnight, standing up an entire new channel of service within the span of 2 weeks and in partnership with hundreds of franchisees is quite an accomplishment. Could not be more proud of, you know, our folks in the field, our franchisee partners, and our teams as a business. And so there are some things that happened immediately, like curbside, and that will also stay over time. And so, for instance, what we saw in that channel of adoption is immediately we're able to continue to serve our customers who were still looking for that dining experience. But now, even post-pandemic, that fits into a whole range of choices that we give our customers. So we still see curbside going strong within the overall mix. So you stand something up in 2 weeks, that becomes a large percent of your sales mix, is, a clear example of where, the world changed immediately. Going part and parcel with that, when you look at the consumer changes, I think if you guys read out there, pick a source, you'll hear 3 to 5 years of technology adoption happened overnight with consumers. And we see that and we echo it. And I think, we can talk a little later about some of those other ways that we've incorporated technology and incorporated that change into our business that will be staying for the long term as well. But it clearly required us doing operational changes within the span of a couple weeks, and then, embracing and welcoming that 3 to 5 years of digital acceleration from a consumer adoption standpoint.
Well, it sounds like, and I hear this term a lot, but it sounds like you took technology to enable that phygital, if you will, so the physical and the digital, and enabling a combination and balance of both of those to serve your customers. And would love to hear a little bit more about some of those changes, as well as some of those cool things that you have going on with technology around Jamba, for example, with the kiosks, using mobile apps for loyalty and customer acquisition. So feel free to jump in there with any of those types of technologies that you feel people would want to know about.
When you hit the nail on the head, it's a funny word to say, but we really believe it's about customer experience. And so talking in isolation about digital doesn't make nearly as much sense, in the way we're approaching things, as talking about the customer experience, talking about what their needs are and how we add value to their life. And that necessitates bringing together the digital and the physical. And so as we have gone through the transition of the pandemic, and I think one of the reasons our brands are seeing such strong growth, not even over the pandemic, but, when you look 2-3 years on a comp basis, very strong growth, is because we've made that pivot and we've said, how do we add that value to your life? How do we build that relationship? And one of those best examples is actually in our McAlister's brand. We have a order mode that's accessible through our app and to loyalty members, but it really is about an experience in the store. So it's tableside dining service. So what happens is, in a, restaurant category where typically you have to come in and you stand behind a register and you either might have to wait in line or you're having that contact with a cashier, this is a completely contactless upfront ordering piece, and it's convenience and it elevates it. So you walk in, you pick your own table, just like you would in a casual dining space. And now you're getting full tableside service because you simply bring up your app. You can have your favorite menu items in there that you want to order. You can try something new that day, but you place your order 100% without ever moving from that table. We serve you your drink course and can recognize you by name because it's all part of that personalization in the app. Then we bring a separate entree course, refill your drinks, and bus your table at the end. So it really becomes the digital and the physical coming together in a way that starts to blur the lines, because now in a fast casual environment, you're getting service that is really elevated, but at a fast casual price point, and with that aspect of personalization and convenience. And so those are the ways we think about how do we truly start with what do we want the guest to experience and design the technology and have it be tied into the app and loyalty program around that type of experience.
Wow, that's exciting. And it sounds like mobile is very much at the core of what you're doing right now to enable that combination of physical and digital.
100%. And that's because of really the effort of building that long-term relationship and having accessibility and convenience to guests. And so mobile is at the forefront of that. As is, really technology in general. You mentioned Jamba a minute ago. So at Focus Brands and through our Jamba brand, we have a concept called Jamba by Blended. And this goes exactly to that accessibility and convenience as well in a slightly different way. And this is a fully automated kiosk with robotics and AI. And so now you're able to get your favorite Jamba item and smoothie with no staffing there. So you're walking up and you're ordering from this fully automated AI-driven solution. And so you can have your Jamba experience accessible in different locations and in different ways than was ever possible before. And it's contactless. And so I think those are the type of things, two examples that pull on different areas of how we are evolving, not just a one-time change based on the pandemic, but really more systemically how we think consumers are changing and how accessibility, convenience, personalization, and building that relationship is very important and heavily enabled by mobile for sure.
Well, it sounds like the non-traditional places where you could find a Jamba, for example, I was reading that in hospitals, potentially there will be kiosks in the coming year. I thought that was really interesting, as well as big box when people are shopping. So it sounds to me as if you are trying to change distribution, basically, or add to your distribution strategy to meet the customer's needs.
Yeah, it's really about that accessibility at different points. When you think about the brands in the Focus Brands portfolio, and I'll take even higher education as an example, we have presence in a lot of college towns and on college campuses through different aspects of our brands. The Jamba by Blended experience is another way to get into that higher education component. And so you have something where, again, now you can access Jamba there, where you also have some other versions of some of our restaurant brands, embedded deeply in those college communities. So it's about understanding who that target audience is and then saying, how do we make these brands more accessible? So whether you want a healthy snack, whether you're looking for lunch or dinner, we're there as a solution. And then the loyalty program sitting in the back end of that to really help continue to build and cultivate that relationship and give our consumers a reason, to choose our brands and rewards, honestly, that matter to consumers that will help them to deepen that relationship with us over time.
So you hear the term personalization, which every industry is talking about right now, especially because loyalty is challenging. There are so many different companies that are trying to figure out, how do we keep our customers happy? How do we acquire new customers? And then what's the future look like? So one of the areas that I would imagine is something that you all are using heavily or leaning into is data. Can you speak a little bit about how you use data at the company and what you plan to do in the future for new acquisition strategies using data and loyalty as well?
100%. And it's interesting. In my personal background, I've worked in the casino space as well. And so you talk about having data as a backbone. Those industries have been built for decades on really having a great set of insight into consumer purchase patterns, engagement patterns, and being able to tailor your offers and your services to them. So personally, I'm a passionate believer in data as a backbone to a business and really fostering those relationships with your customers. And here at Focus, much like with technology, you can't have data for data's sake. You have to think, how do we use data in order to provide more value to our customers? So when we think about personalization, it's not personalization for personalization's sake, but it's giving the right curated choices to our customers. And so when you think about, for instance, our loyalty programs, that's how a lot of them are constructed. Simplicity. So you're earning points, and then you get some choice, though, as to how you want to redeem those points in multiple of our brands. And on the backside, obviously, we have the data that we're capturing to understand the vast differences between a mom who has school-age children and is coming to Moe's on the weekend after a soccer game or is looking for a meal solution, on a weeknight versus someone who's coming for lunch. And we can see that, they're ordering an app, they're looking for, convenience. Maybe they're doing a pickup or a delivery and it's a lunch-based solution. What we're talking to them about, in that case in Moe's, very, very different. So to that family, we're talking about our kids eat free on Sunday, and we're giving them messages and offers that are around that and some bonus loyalty points for those visits potentially. And then during the week, we're really talking about our meal kit solutions, right? So you have this just ready to go meal kit solution from your same app. You can have it delivered. You can have it ready to go for pickup if you're driving on the way home from practice. Order it while you're at practice, swing by and pick it up. Very different than the messaging that we're giving to the person who's looking for that solution during their weekday lunch. And those are real examples of what you can find in the data. So you have to go into it saying, I'm trying to better understand my customers and the different type of customers. And I want to take from within my brand the things that'll be most important and most helpful, again, to those consumers, because that's what consumers are looking for. What's a solution that I need to make my life easier now? And how are you bringing me that value? So data is vitally important. How you use that data and how you mine that data is just as important and a key part of that equation as well. And it's definitely a fundamental part of our strategies going forward.
That's great. Super helpful to understand how you're using it. What about marketing? How are you using data to market to your customers? It sounds like you have a trove of data, and I'm a big believer in data as well, having spent 4.5 years at Acxiom Corporation, one of the largest data companies in the world. How are you using first-party data for marketing, as well as understanding what the changes will be when the cookie goes away? What types of marketing activities do you foresee, and how are you using data to inform those decisions?
Great question. And so data in our own channels are kind of the examples I was just giving you primarily, right? So we can reach out by email, we can reach out with, push messages in the app, and we're using some of our own channels to communicate those personalized offers. But a lot of those same strategies bridge into the media world, right? Where you're able to use that data and say, okay, who are the potential customers who are not currently, stick on the Moe's example, Moe's customers, but who look like our existing Moe's customer profiles. And so being able to take our own data profiles and develop those lookalikes out there and tailor the offers as well in the media and in our mobile marketing that we're doing is hugely important. I think another thing you're going to see exists today, but we'll have more and more convergence of in the marketing world because of what's happening with cookies, is the ability to actually take your own known set of customers, and instead of being just focused on email and push type messages, you actually can go and market to those customers within a lot of those traditional advertising channels as well. So using various partners and methodologies to create that match and be purposeful about, am I giving this media communication to someone I know that's already one of my existing customers? And again, that message should look very different than if I'm giving it to someone who looks like one of my existing customers, but whom I haven't acquired yet. And so, that data-driven approach to media and being very purposeful, both about how you better build brand equity in media and using those targeted approaches. And then certainly as you're looking to drive conversion and steal share lower in the funnel, being targeted with data becomes even more vitally important so that you're increasing the ROI. I mean, it's one of our biggest commitments, to our franchisees and our business community, is that we're using insights, we're using data-driven strategies to get more ROI out of our marketing and media spends.
And I would imagine, I've been hearing a lot about what the National Restaurant Association is saying, that it might take another year to get back to the revenue that was seen prior to the pandemic. I believe that they said it was $898 billion in sales in food service industry this year. I'm curious what you think about, what's next that will drive that revenue.
I think, honestly, it's a lot of what we've been talking about, but not losing sight of that overall customer experience. You have to be clear on your brand. You have to have a breakthrough experience. At Focus Brands, and clearly we don't publish our numbers, but I will say, we are experiencing strong growth. And so we are a set of growing brands. We're a set of brands who are increasing our frequency with our best customers. And so, as we look, it's how do we continue to do the things that are clearly working for us and that we haven't seen some of that dip in the business, as we stand here now post-pandemic. And I think it's because you're employing a lot of these data-driven strategies, combining the digital and the physical, but being centered on, and I can't emphasize it enough, of that brand experience too. You know who you are and what value you're providing to consumers. And I think that's going to become even more important in the next wave of challenges that we're all facing, which is supply chain and inflation pressures. Consumers are going to be more choiceful, more purposeful in deciding where they are dining or where they're using their discretionary dollars, period. And I think it's vital for all of us as marketers and business folks to really, lean into that and make sure that we're the one we're choosing because we're going out of our way to provide that personalized value to our customers.
That's great. And, it sounds like some of the takeaways from our conversation are really all focused on that customer experience and making sure that you're not just sending out personalized messages to send them out, that you're actually tying that personalization to whatever messaging you're bringing to market, as well as, something I'm curious about that we didn't touch on is, what about customer feedback? So are you hearing from your customers that these strategies are working? I mean, in concept and theory, it sounds like it. And I'm sure from a revenue perspective, you can see that. But what do the customers say?
And thank you for bringing that up, because we haven't touched on it. And it's so vitally important that you're having that two-way dialogue with customers. Anytime you're just talking to yourself or you're talking in one direction, probably not going to be a winning strategy. So we're very purposeful about capturing that customer feedback in, I'll say, 3 key ways. So one is we have launched in the last 18 months a very robust customer satisfaction and feedback measuring tool. It's consistent across all 7 of the brands. It's one of the great examples of when you're in a multi-brand company, how we can help each of our brands. We kind of call it punch above your weight, right? So it's a world-class solution where, our brands are able to tap into daily commentary from our customers as to, their feedback. We actually send surveys to our loyalty members. So we have this constant component of getting customer feedback, being able to use those real verbatims to improve our business and to measure what matters as far as the drivers of customer satisfaction, and have each and every franchisee and store location see their own data there and be able to close that loop with customers. So customer feedback and the mechanism and technology behind that, vitally important, and that you're in there looking at those comments every day. So that's one key way. A second one is we'll just ask our customers. So, we found it to be so actually helps deepen our customer relationships when we reach out to some of our most valuable existing customers and say, hey, we want your opinion on this. So we've been putting out surveys to some of our top customers in our key brands and asking what they'd like on the menu item, what flavor profiles attract them. Do you like this? Do you not? And people love that behind the scenes view. For a brand they love and they visit frequently, it's powerful to be able to give that input. And so we'll directly ask them in that way. And we found huge response. I mean, sometimes in the first 15 minutes we send a survey out, you have thousands of responses back because of that level of brand love, which I think is wonderful and a great way to just ask our customers. And then the third is social media. So, we'll have different engagement points. McAlister's Deli, just in the fall of last year, we have our iconic giant spuds. And so we put together this program that included customer acquisition. So we were doing a sweepstakes and a giveaway to a giant spud hotel in Idaho, which is a topic for another day, but there is a spud hotel in Idaho.
Wow.
But as a part of that, to enter, you kind of just have to show us what's your favorite spud recipe. How do you customize it? How do you make it your own? So we're trying to start that dialogue in that social environment too. And we get some input for menu items that way, but you're also getting guests to interact with the brand. So we're very purposeful in all 3 of those ways of cultivating a two-way dialogue with our customers.
That's great. Sounds like fun too. I might have to look at that contest. Well, I guess last question. One of the technologies we hear a lot about is QR codes, and how that data is actually informing customer opinions, and also just in general using it for menu options, but gathering information that's super important. So be curious, what do you think of QR codes now and in the future? Do you think they're going away? What are they used for in your organization?
It's interesting. It might be one of the longest to adoption technologies that existed, right? Meaning for a long time they existed and people are like, meh, I don't know if it's going to make it. But I think now we see great engagement, and it's not about QR codes themselves. It's about what you can do with them, right? So it's that convenience for the guest. And so we have them for that tableside ordering I was discussing. One of the ways, if you sit down at the table and you're like, what is this tableside ordering? Well, great. There's a QR code, so you can instantly get a link to download the app so that you can become a new member and a new participant without having to leave that table. And that's a convenience thing because you're scanning the QR code. To sign up for our loyalty programs, we'll have links, through the QR code component, and to redeem points as well in some of the loyalty programs. So it's really a way to remove the friction in getting the customer to that digital destination that you're looking for is how we think about that. And we do see great adoption for customers when you're clear about what are you getting and what action are you going to take when you scan this QR code.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you all are on the right path. And I'm curious if you have any last thoughts for those restaurateurs out there, any last benefits you can impart about technology or about your brands. I'm curious if there's anything else you'd like to tell the audience.
I'd just come back to that customer experience and customer journey. And, you hear the buzzwords of do a customer journey map. I think it's so powerful. It is when you put yourself in the customer's shoes and you take that feedback and you take the digital and the physical and you take your media as well as your own channels and stitch them together into what is that customer journey we want to create that adds value to our customers' lives. That's a way that all of these things move together so that 1 + 1 = 3 at the end of the day.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for all of that information. I'd like to welcome the audience now to provide some questions, and Stuart will come back and help us in that regard.
And I'm back, or at least I should be back. You can never tell myself whether I'm up on screen, but I'll see that in just a second. Again, Molly and Danielle, great conversation, and I was thinking as we were talking about these things this morning, I mean, really no industry has gone through quite the transition that food service has gone through over the past 2 years, right? We're just at about 2 years this Sunday. As we think this through, from closures to, your competitors going from selling lunches to selling groceries to shifting the entire program and the role mobile has ultimately played in all of this. So it's really just a great conversation, a great way to wrap up these past 2 years. Really appreciate the insights on all of this. To our audience, I just want to let you know, we're going to take audience questions for about the next 8-10 minutes or so. So please submit your questions. You see the question tool there on your screen. We have a number of them queued up. We're going to get to as many as we can over the next 10 minutes or so. If we don't get a chance to get to your question, we always forward them all over to our sponsor. So there is opportunity for an offline response as well. Couple quick reminders before we get into questions. First off, today's webinar has been recorded, and we're going to send you a link to that on-demand recording later today. So check your email, 3:30, 4 o'clock. You'll get that link. You want to go watch it again? Terrific. You can share that link as well with your colleagues if you think that they're going to benefit from some of this. This is a topic of interest to them. But let's get into these questions as they're coming in here, Molly. And I want to talk a little bit about your app investments, because obviously, you talked, that was a direction that you were going in, that Focus Brands was heading in pre-pandemic. Obviously, in the pandemic, the app became so much more important for you. But as you're going forward here, what does your app look like? I want to say, 6 months from now or a year from now. Where should app development be going? Because it's it's becoming a critical part of the experience, and it's becoming, I guess, there's a, part of the muscle memory of your clientele these days as well, so that they're expecting to see different things in apps than maybe they did 12 months or 18 months ago as part of this. What are you seeing, and where do you want to head without of course giving away your secrets?
Yes. And I think, look, you said something in that is super important, which is consumers are viewing apps differently. I think previously you talk about an app and it felt pretty transactional. It felt like a thing, right? And so how do I get customers to download my app? And I want more customers with the app. And I don't think that's the right question or approach. And luckily, we're seeing companies change, and definitely have seen consumers change to have that be a different question, which is, what am I enabled to do that makes it more convenient for me in the app? How do I have a bundled experience in the app? So when we think about designing our apps, and quite frankly, even just our mobile sites, period, it's about how do you combine loyalty. So you have visibility into, here's your personalized set of offers. Here's your personalized, reward status as you are today. And then it's providing that choice and convenience, boom, right up front. Do you want, first party delivery? Are you doing a pickup order, and an order ahead situation? Or like I said, that table side example. So, which way do you want to transact with us today? And then really, really removing all the friction in the experience, to go all the way through and making it easy. If you've got some add-ons to suggest, put it in a bundle, right? Make it something where it's easy for the customer to transact. You can save your preferences. And I think that goes back to that word I was using with relationships. Think about your app in the context of developing a relationship. If you wouldn't want to use it yourself or wouldn't want your friends and family to use it, probably not doing it right. So how do you add value as you're designing that app? And I think that's going to be the guiding principle. And then, making that personalized to the intersection of your customers' needs and your brand value proposition is super important, and owning that customization within your company. And that's certainly something we're looking at in Focus Brands as a huge development aspect for us in loyalty and in, app and web technology. And that's because, we believe it is important to own that experience and to be personalized in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
Molly,
Stuart.
yeah, go ahead. What do you have to add?
Okay. I wanted to mention that we actually just recently did, a study on appless and app plus, meaning do people actually use apps on a regular basis? Well, one thing that we did find was about 40% of the overall respondents said that they use apps more likely to purchase at store or go to a restaurant or order online than they would if they didn't have the app. We're also seeing that loyalty is much stronger in terms of overall ordering and the cost, as well as what they put in their cart to order. And we're also seeing that there is a much higher percentage of people that will actually go and pick up, and they'll add to cart using the app to do so. They'll actually upgrade what they originally thought that they would order more often than not. And so we're seeing something very similar to what Danielle just explained. The more customized the app, the more a customer actually will use the app and offers in real time. For example, if they're in line waiting to pick up, they might actually have a higher propensity for adding to their overall order, which ultimately is wallet share and basket size is increased.
Got it. We talk, obviously, a lot of our conversations these days are always about digital and mobile and where everything is going. But Danielle, we'd love to hear sort of, we're also right on the verge of, and hopefully on the verge of, like, the next shift in behavior, in which the comfort level of being in a restaurant for a large number of people is going to shift. So we've talked about phygital as we've done all this, but looking on that physical side, how is the in-restaurant experience? Are you planning for shifts? Are you expecting, behavior to go back to 2019 behavior, or is there a new behavior and a new experience that you're really looking at in store that is more, while it's physical, it has that digital element to it as part of it? Like you talked about things like, again, table side, right, where you're ordering from your phone, right, not from a menu. It's a different server experience. People expect something a little bit different than maybe they had in the past. What goes next is as part, in other words, where is the muscle memory on that sort of in-restaurant experience?
Thanks, Stuart. And I saw it in the questions too. It's such an important question because there absolutely are changes in the physical side. Some of those changes are designed to support the digital. So as you look at having more pickup, more curbside, more delivery, there were absolutely physical changes in our prototypes and even in our existing restaurants that we had to do. You have to make sure you have some of those pickup stations in a convenient location, tweaking some of the labor models so that you have people in the right places, really doing time and motion studies to make sure you're doing the prep and everything else to get that right. So it's people and its physical design. And then looking forward on our prototypes, our Schlotzsky's brand actually has a couple really cool public prototypes, smaller footprint, big emphasis on drive-through, but also a really wonderful branded experience for dine-in as well. And so the physical plan and our prototypes are absolutely about bringing the physical and the digital together, and very much so, needed to adjust things in those designs to make more sense going forward and to be ready for that next continued evolution.
Right. Like, I mean, you even use the term drive-through, and I was thinking, like, what is a drive-through these days, right? Because of course the concept of the drive-through, which is you go right, you can order and then keep driving and pick it up. But now the order isn't being placed through the disembodied, unhearable voice coming through a clown or whatever is the situation on this, but is actually coming through your phone as your order, right? It's that order is almost secondary as part of this, with a clear idea of timing and when you actually need to drive up and be there and have it ready for you, or a place to park so someone brings it to you. It's a very different experience, but it's the same convenience. Is that?
It is. Yeah, absolutely, and it's back to which is right for which brand. So Schlotzsky's is still a traditional drive-through. Now we're enhancing that with giving you a reason to scan, and participate in the loyalty program when you drive through, but it's a drive-through, whereas McAlister's is a pickup window. If you show up and you're looking for a place you can order there in a drive-through, it doesn't exist because it's meant to be in order to give you the experience you need and to have time to prep that food. You order ahead through the app, but you do it through the pickup window. And so, we made that decision purposefully based on what, the brand positioning and what the brand, offering is from a menu perspective, as well as the customer's needs. And so you're absolutely correct. Same window in the side of the building, two totally different experiences. And that's what's right for each of those brands.
Can we just go ahead, Molly?
Oh, I was just going to say that we're seeing a lot of shift toward that type of behavior from the Gen Zs, for example. I mean, I have an 18-year-old, almost 19-year-old. She would never just walk up and order. She only uses her phone and a mobile app to do so. We've seen that in our research too. In that study I referenced beforehand, the younger generation will actually go to a physical location if they have the app, which is just a complete shift from what we've seen over the course of the last 10 years in behavior.
Right. It's so interesting. I mean, as you bring this stuff up, because of course the big question was, I mean, if we were talking about apps 4 years ago, it was people download lots of apps and they don't use them. Right. And because there wasn't always a compelling reason for all of this, but what we're actually seeing is now a compelling reason to use them. And the number of apps that one has on one's phone is probably expanding. Maybe aligned with, what we used to think of as the key fobs of loyalty. But, you talk a lot about, because that's where everyone's loyalty app is, and the brands that you care about, you're representing on your phone as part of that experience. Right. And I'm sure that's what but a question on the acquisition side here, Danielle, as well, right? We look at loyalty, and loyalty, of course, is a retention and a growth strategy. But as you're looking at acquisition, are there things that you're doing mobily as part of that? Are you looking at a richer mobile advertising program? Where does all of that ultimately fit in the as part of ongoing mobile strategy?
Absolutely. As we look at our, media ecosystem, heavily in, digital media, not our own channels, but out in the world, and using mobile marketing and really digitally accessible and targeted marketing tremendously as a driver. It's about having the right content there and targeting the right audiences. And I think something to make sure we're not leaving to the side is some of the more traditional branding components in this, because it's not just about that growth and retention, and it's not just about the data. You also have to resonate with consumers, and you have to have a brand that makes sense. So you're generating that trial to begin with. Mm-hmm. And that is a big part of what we do. One of my favorite recent examples, and this is one of those where you take a bit of a risk, but you also find a great partner in this, and heavily delivered in mobile and in social advertising, is we just had a launch of products, calzones for Schlotzsky's. So here's an opportunity where really it's a new product and you have to make a splash, and found a great partner in Joey Fatone, who became Joey Calzone. And so we put a great content program together in this. He literally in a bodysuit was rebirthed as an artist out of a calzone to become Joey Calzone as a part of the campaign for Schlotzsky's. Tremendously successful, hit the ground running in calzones as far as sales mix. But now you have content that you can deliver in some of those mobile channels, get people interested in the brand, tap into that broader network that he brought to the table as well. And then give a great loyalty acquisition offer and a great trial offer to have you start to come in and try one of those calzones and get embedded in the brand. So we really think about it as that whole ecosystem.
Got it. Molly, anything on acquisition that you're seeing on the broader QSR retail side?
Yeah, I mean, going back to that actually is that people do respond to mobile advertising if the advertising is something that resonates with the consumer. So again, it's thinking about which channels to use, targeting the right types of customers, speaking to them the way that they want to be spoken to, which of course data informs that. But it's also going back to the menu options, for example. So customer feedback, and are we able to deliver a message within the app or across MWeb, for example, that really speaks to that customer in the Joey Calzone way, if that's what they're expecting, right? And so from all of our research, we have found that, yes, mobile advertising is something that works, especially because within an app, for example, you have a captive audience. So that captive audience is spending, by the way, 4.25 hours on a mobile device on any given day. So if you have the ability to speak to that very captive audience, and it's a one-on-one relationship that you're trying to build with cool content, with cool ads, that's actually going to be a very successful strategy. And we have 12 years of experience in this industry where we're able to speak about that from an expertise perspective. So yes, absolutely. We're seeing a big trend in mobile advertising as a core strategy for driving sales and driving people to store as well as to restaurants.
I would love to keep going with these questions. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. I really appreciate, again, both of you taking some time to answer these questions and add some insights to everyone on really where everything is going in this fast evolving mobile world. Is it the year of mobile, by the way? Are we finally there? I just want to check because we were. I guess the year of mobile arrived finally. Listen, I want to thank you both again. Really interesting topic. Just such an interesting of what's going on in the industry, because it's also something that, again, every single person feels the impact as part of their daily lives. It's restaurant and and food service is really embedded in what we do on a constant basis. To our audience, again, just some final quick reminders here to you. You're going to get that link to the on-demand version, so please share it with your colleagues, watch the video, have your colleagues register. We'll send them that link directly. Adweek.com/webinars, our webinar calendar. See what's coming up, sign up for an upcoming webinar, check out the on-demand archive, look for some of those InMobi webinars we've done in the past as well. So again, I want to thank our speakers. Again, Molly Seitel from our sponsors at InMobi, Danielle Parra from Focus Brands, really great conversation. Want to thank our audience for taking time out of your busy day, and we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Adweek webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.